Welcome in the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And I'm joined, as always, by my cousin Shane, who goes by Big Orange Balls on Twitter. What are you up to, you big Tennessee homer?
Hey, buddy, what's going on?
Oh, man, we had 2 spring games to enjoy this weekend, so I'm pretty fired up about that. I've released my post-spring SEC power rankings. We'll get into that. I'm fired up to talk some football, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, I'm a little down, Mike, because, again, this is the last 2 of the college matchups. You know, I've never been more in tune to a spring game in my life than the Alabama and the LSU. It was fun seeing them, but then it was also bittersweet because I know, again, we got some time before we see them back in action, and thank God, because some of them boys need a little practice. You know what I'm saying? a little rough. That's why they call it spring. You know, it's working out some kinks and working out some things. But there was also some really cool stuff, good things in these games. I hope we get to talk about.
Right, and I also forgot to mention, Shane, our mailbox is flooded right now, so keep those coming. We really do appreciate those. We're going to get to a lot more of those. That's really going to help us out the next couple of weeks when things slow down. If you want to be featured on the show, you got a comment, concern, question, whatever, hit us up on that the voicemail chat line, 615-965-5152. We've already gotten to several of these last week, and again, we'll get to plenty more this week. We just got a loaded show here this Monday, but again, that call-in line, 615-965-5152. I know I'm having a good time with it, Shane. We had one guy call in here on Sunday. His message was so long, Shane, he had to hang up the phone because it cut you off after like 5 minutes, and he called right back. He's like, here's part 2. He kept on going. So we got some good stuff in there. You know what?
Absolutely. And my favorite ones are the hot takes, you know, because we're going to have some hot takes this summer. It's going to be a hot summer. You know what I'm saying? And right. If you think your team is the team that's going to win an SEC championship or be the surprise team to make college football playoffs, I want to hear it. Or if your foe you think is going to fall on their face and come down to earth, you know, I also want to hear that as well. So now this thing is really cool. I've had a lot of people text me individually trying to figure out what that number was again. So for the listeners, Mike, could you give them that toll-free number?
615-965-5152, and it's cousin Shane and I on the voicemail, so you know you've hit the right number when you hear us laughing and cutting up there. So
yeah. Well, let me ask you, because I'm just curious. I said toll free. I don't know if it is toll free, but does that even matter anymore? When did long distance not matter? You know, it's like all of a sudden we just stopped talking about it.
I can promise you, Shay, we're not making a dime off his call-in line. So no, to my knowledge, it doesn't cost anything. It's just like a regular phone call.
Yeah. Well,
of course, I say that, and then people's checking their phone bill next month.
No, I don't think it works that way, but I just thought it's funny because now you could call that. Like, I used to not be able to call the county over. You know, I couldn't call you growing up. It'd be long distance, and my parents would be like mad that I spent too long on the phone talking to Morristown. You know what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden, it's like, yeah, you want to call Alaska? Call Alaska. Here's their number, you know? I think you can call Japan if you want. So, yeah. At any rate, man, it does not cost anything to call this. When you do get it, you'll be prompted with what's your name. So, again, give them your name, and then your message will come after our voicemail. So, yeah. keep them rolling. We ain't ignoring you. We're just saving them up because it's a long off season here.
Well, like you said, Shane, this Alabama spring game, highly anticipated. Let's get into our thoughts on it. And I should mention, on the last episode we had on Friday, you know, the hot rumor was Miami quarterback Tyler Van Dyke possibly jumping into the portal and heading to Alabama. This is the wild times we're living, Shane. He never even got in the portal, but he has reaffirmed his commitment to the Hurricanes over the weekend. He threw 3 touchdowns in their spring game, apparently looked incredible, and just one look at this Alabama, this quarterback competition, you get a good indication of why they were interested in Tyler Van Dyke. Shane, right out the gate, Jalen Milroe ran with the first team. He went 3 and out. In comes Ty Simpson, 3 and out. Jalen Milroe back on the field, 3 and out. Ty Simpson on the field, hey, you got a first down. And then went 3 and out. I mean, this was a 3 and out fest. That's not to say that these quarterbacks are awful, Shane. They're terrible, and Alabama can't win a single game with them. But I really do think, Shane, the concern, and this is, again, we're not trying to overreact to one game, but this has been the theme all camp. You know, there was the rumors with the North Carolina quarterback, Drake May. Now there's rumors with Miami quarterback. It is clear that Nick Saban is not totally thrilled with these guys. We'll get to his comments in a minute. I mean, he was pretty heated after this spring game. But to what I was going to say, Shane, these are not terrible, horrible quarterbacks. They're inexperienced. And I think Saban knows. I mean, how many more years do I got at this thing? He's trying to win a national championship every single year. And as we're recording this, April 23rd, I have little confidence that either one of these quarterbacks, after watching them on Saturday, are good enough right now to lead Alabama to a national championship. Do you agree, or am I overreacting?
To a national championship? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, I agree with you.
That's the only goal.
I mean,
that's the only goal for Alabama.
Yeah, I think because, I mean, we got to see a little bit of it last year. This just kind of doubled down what we were thinking coming in. The spring game was nasty, man. I'm telling you, not just the broadcast. For some reason, it was shot from a Motorola Razr, but I'm telling you, it was tough watch if you love offense. It was a tough watch if you love quarterback play. Now, is there talent on that field? Absolutely. That freaking team is riddled with talent. I think the next crop of wide receivers to come out of Alabama will be playing on Sunday sooner than later. I think these running backs, there's a true competition back there, and it doesn't matter who has the rock. They are super talented. I love that side. Big, huge offensive line. Now, I will say the offensive line did not play great, in my opinion. I still think – I liked how aggressive they were letting the defense be in this matchup, but clearly the offensive line's got some work to do as well to help this quarterback situation. But if it comes down to Simpson and Milroe winning a national championship, I don't know, buddy. If I'm a gambling man, and I would put my money on no right now. Milroe offers something. You got to see a little bit of that mobility, and you know, he's always going to be an X factor when he's out there because he's extremely athletic. But still, it was just some of those balls, man. I mean, they were just placed up and prayed to God that the receivers make a move. Right.
And again, this is not to say they're horrible, like you said, Shane. I mean, they both showcase dynamic playmaking ability with their legs. Jalen Milroe was a 35-yard touchdown, I think, on a read option. Fantastic. Ty Simpson, very underrated athlete. He had a big run in the game. But just example, Shane, like there was a 2-minute drill at the end of the first half. Ty Simpson has the ball, or Alabama has the ball. Ty Simpson is the quarterback. He moves them down the field, but misses an easy touchdown to Jermaine Burton, and then a couple plays later intercepted at the goal line. And then Milroe comes in, and first pass intercepted. And just look at their stats at halftime. Jalen Milroe, 9 of 19, 117 passing yards, 2 interceptions. Ty Simpson, 9 of 16, 85 passing yards, 1 interception. And this was the thing. They're turning the ball over. That's what's pissing Saban off because they want to be pounded, physical, running attack.
Yeah.
And you cannot have a quarterback turning the ball over. We don't have Bryce Young anymore. We're not going to throw 45 touchdowns. Right. We want to throw 25 and have 5 interceptions or less on the season. These guys are basically getting that in the spring game. You know what?
I think you hit the nail on the head. He doesn't need a quarterback to go out there and win the game. He doesn't. He just needs a game manager. He needs somebody to make sure that they're lined up. I mean, he comes out here and talks about this in a minute. Just recognizing the defense. Recognize the defense, get your guys in the right place, and make the right calls. Be efficient. That's what Saban needs, and if they do that, man, they're going to win a lot of games, if not all of them. You know, right. But until then, and I mean, it's a long off season. But how much can you learn? How much more are we going to see from these quarterbacks to improve into the fall? I don't know. So, no, that portal's very interesting down there in Tuscaloosa, in my opinion.
And it certainly wasn't all bad, Shane, here. Let's make it clear. We're not here just crapping on the Crimson Tide. I thought freshman running back Justice Hayes, he looked incredible. 3 touchdowns, 2 rushing,
Beast.
1 receiving. This was a guy that's been getting hype all camp. And, man, he may start for the Crimson Tide, and they have a loaded backfield. The only reason he wouldn't start is because they have such a good backfield. Saban says he'll see the field early and often. I thought this was kind of interesting, Shane. 6 of the first 9 completions went to tight ends. So
yeah,
maybe some Tommy Reese effect there. Tight ends are going to be integral in this offense. And again, Jalen Milroe was not awful by any means, but he just, at the end of the game, he had a 2-minute situation, and they ended up scoring a touchdown. He threw it to the junior college receiver, the transfer in here, Malik Benson, who's been getting so much praise. So it looks like a nice connection between those two. So there were good things. And at the end of the day, Shane, we could just sit here and say, that just tells me they're going to have one hell of a defense. You know what I mean? Yeah. Maybe that's the case.
That's what I was thinking the whole time, just because, that offensive line, as big as they were, was not getting that much push, They were really having a tough time. And in fact, it felt like most of the yardage created was just the running back's God gift and his ability, and the quarterback deciding to take the ball and run. So it was tough to judge this game. And I don't want to, like you said, I don't want to. I'm not shitting on Alabama by no means. Super talented, man. This running back room. Oh my God! Like, I knew they were good, but watching it I didn't know who had the ball sometimes. It didn't matter. It could be third team. That guy he's going to make some people miss. So very, very talented in that backfield. The wide receiver core, very, very talented. I love the tight end room as well. I do like this offensive line. I think they're going to get better the more they play as a unit. It's just the quarterback play. And it's not so much, again, I need him to come out here and just have 400 yards passing. We don't need that from Alabama. We just need efficiency. We need no turnovers. We need the chains moving. We need to keep this defense off the field. That's what Alabama needs. That's their recipe for winning a lot of games. So they got some work ahead of them, and but still, it was fun. It was fun watching some of these new names, man. The next chapter down there in Tuscaloosa. It was fun watching.
Yeah, and after the A-Day spring game, Shane, Nick Saban, of course, met with the media and came out a little fiery. We'll get to those fiery comments in just a second. But, front and center, he was asked about the quarterbacks, the advantage of having guys in the system, and also his thoughts on the progression of Ty Simpson and Jalen Milroe this spring.
A fair number of teams are trying to plug in quarterbacks and transfer in the spring and fall. How much advantage is there? What are the benefits to having guys who have been in the program for a while, even if they haven't played a ton?
Well, I think the people that have been in the program obviously, have an advantage to some degree because they know the system. They've had a lot of reps in the system. But I also think, everybody needs to ask themselves, whatever position you play, are you playing winning football at that position, and can you play winning football at that position? And I think that's a better answer to the question, who could do that the best. And those are evaluations that we have to make as coaches at every position. And, we've tried to build this program here with the guys that we recruit and the people in the program, but we have had a few guys that have come in and made, real impacts on the team. And if we see an opportunity to do that, we're always looking for a way to make our team better.
Coach, keeping it with the quarterbacks, but focusing on Jalen and Ty, what did you see today was the biggest overall positive from both of them at play? And what was the biggest challenge that you want to kind of gear towards getting them prepared for the next season?
I think the big thing we're working on with the quarterbacks is fundamentally what they have to do to be able to process what is the defense doing. All right, get a pre-read of what is they playing. They play in cover 2, they play in cover 7, they play in 3 deep zone, so that you have a plan in your mind. This is where I'm reading, this is where I'm going, and this is the progression that I want to go through. And trust in that and believe in that, and not start drifting around in a pocket, before you give up on what your read might be. Because I think we have pretty good skill guys. I think we have guys that can make plays, and as a quarterback, it's not only just the plays that you can make. And I like both guys' athleticism to be able to extend plays and get out of trouble and make plays with their feet, which they did a couple times today. But at the same time, I think we've got to work on going through progressions and develop confidence in the passing game so that we can distribute the ball to other people who can make plays more effectively and more efficiently.
So let me ask you this, Shane. Again, we're not making any bold predictions or anything like that, but just based on what you saw in the spring game, if Alabama had a game tomorrow, which of course they don't, but if they did, if they had a game tomorrow, who would you name the starting quarterback based on what you saw, Ty Simpson or Jalen Milroe? I'm just curious to hear your thoughts.
Milroe. I'm going Milroe. Just the mobility is a factor, and not to mention just he's acclimated a little bit more. He does have some game experience, and I think that's important because when the lights come on, and it's more than I don't know how many fans they said they had down there, but when there's 100,000 of them watching you, I want somebody that's a little bit game worn, so
right.
That's where I'm leaning right now, and I've always been that way. When you've got kind of a tight quarterback race, I want the mobile guy because worst case scenario, if the pocket breaks down, he can make something with his legs and sometimes win you games just by that factor.
Right. I'm glad you said that. Well, actually, no, I'm glad you not, because I was going to debate you if you said Ty Simpson. And again, that's not to say Simpson's a bad player, but everything you said I agree with. He's played in Fayetteville. He's beaten A&M, although that was an ugly performance, but he does have that experience on the field. We've seen some highlight throws from him this spring. Alabama has sent those out via social media. So I'm right there with you. If a game started tomorrow, Jalen Milroe will be my quarterback at Alabama. Here's where Saban really got going. Shay talked about Justice Haynes, the freshman running back, and he did not care for this question. It didn't seem about playing players, young players, best players. What is it? Nick Saban, he got a little fiery here, I thought.
Hey, Coach. Justice Haynes had a pretty good game today. How has he developed this spring, and how impactful do you think he could be for you this upcoming fall?
Justice is a really good player. He had a great spring. He's got great maturity about him. You wouldn't know he was a freshman if you didn't know better. The guy's nothing's too big for him in terms of learning, going out and execute it. He's not intimidated by anything, and the guy's got toughness. He can run behind his pads. He's got good speed. He's a good receiver. He can make you miss. So, I think he's got a really bright future, and I think he will contribute to the team this year.
After 15 practices, what do you think of your team's toughness and physicality right now?
I like this team's toughness. I think they're physical. They play hard. We don't have a bunch of guys that are soft or looking for an easy way. They try to please the coaches. They try to play with intensity. I think we have better practice habits than we've had in the past. And I think, that mentality gets developed in the offensive line, the defensive line, and on special teams. And I think we have some guys that are trying to step up and do that.
Taylor and then Kerry.
Coach, like you said in the beginning, there were a lot of young players that took the field today, first and second year players. When it comes to evaluating your rotation for the fall, whether who's going to start, who's going to play as much, how do you determine with young players, okay, we'll live with these growing pains versus, we might need to side with somebody with more experience?
We're going to play the guys that give us the best chance to win. I make all our decisions based on winning. Who can play the best? It doesn't make any difference if you're a fifth-year senior or a freshman. If you're the guy that can go out there, and if you took all the players on our team, you think the players on our team don't know who the best players are? They absolutely do. All right, so if you're a coach and you don't play the best players, you're not going to have the respect of your team because they know who the best players are. They know who they have confidence in. They know who they trust and respect that are going to be able to be accountable to do their job. Can't lose sight of that. So it has nothing to do with age. It has everything to do with accountability. And are you dependable to go out there and do your job? Whether a good thing happens or a bad thing happens, you got to play the next play. So, we use all these things as learning experiences so guys do grow and develop the kind of maturity they need so that they can play in difficult circumstances. And obviously guys with experience should be able to do that better, but they have to prove that they can do it just like the young guys do.
I mean, he's fired up for the season right there, isn't he?
Yeah, man, he looked good too. I ain't gonna lie. Out there in that nice jacket, coaches don't do that anymore. You know, he's still that's what I hate is this next generation. That's going away. Some of that, you know, if those that didn't see him, he's in full suit. You know, it just looked like the '70s out there. You know, but yeah, he was fired up and rightfully so.
Now we've got too many Brett Bielema's in their sweatsuits. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or yeah, with their awkward. The worst is what's his name up there in New England? The cut off sleeves and whatever. What's his name?
Belichick.
What's his name? Belichick, yeah, man, that's one I hope doesn't catch on. But no, it's fun watching. But it was good seeing him. He's always, I mean, he looks as healthy as an ox, man. I swear to God, Saban will never retire, will he, man? I think he looks younger every single year. So I don't know. He's taking every single dime and he's donating it to some sort of fountain of youth down there.
Yep. All right, how about the LSU spring game, Shane? That was also on Saturday, and my immediate thoughts, Jaden Daniels he was on point there. And
yeah,
crown him. Yeah, I'm ready to crown him, Shane. We'll get to Brian Kelly in a minute, but he's got some bold comments here. And that's not to say that Garrett Nussmeier, I mean, he looked pretty good too. He had a 51-yard deep shot to Brian Thomas. That was a hell of a ball. The play of the day, Kyron Lacey, the senior, 70-yard touchdown, one-handed grab,
Beautiful.
Refused to go down. I mean, he just looked like the next generation of elite receivers down there. And we got to see the freshman quarterback, Ricky Collins. He threw a pick six, so he's not ready yet. But, hey, good news is we don't need him to be just yet.
He was live, too. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I'm starting to see that more to where we're not hitting the starting quarterbacks, but the backups. Yeah. Free game for all these spring games. It's pretty interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, Collins putting that red jersey on. He's like, what are you doing? Not. Kelly doesn't. You know what I'm saying? Take that damn thing off. You're getting hit, boy. No, I loved that little action there. But yeah, fantastic. If you're an offensive lover, you loved this LSU performance. This was great stuff, man. What about that I would say the O-line hasn't got enough respect here in the spring, but I don't know if it's a knock on the defense or what, but there was a lot of push. There was a lot of clean pockets back there. Very, very impressed with how well that front five played.
And I think that is the best example, Shane, of just how quickly and professionally Brian Kelly and his staff come in and develop, because this time last year the offensive line was a train wreck.
Yeah.
They had no idea who was going to start anywhere. They had to start two true freshmen. They're landing FCS transfers and hoping they'd be starters, you know. But here we go, fast forward a year. They may have the best offensive line in the SEC, at least the first team. And, man, again, I think that's a credit to Brian Kelly and his staff. You know what?
I agree with you here, Mike. And they did their game a little bit different. It was more situational plays and stuff like that. So it wasn't a straight up one team versus second team. Right. But I just thought overall they didn't miss a beat, you know. And to be playing this well in the spring is scary to me, because they're only going to get better. A lot of playmakers on the outside there. We finally had a little bit of a running game going. It was, you know, this offense is going to be an absolute juggernaut here by fall camp.
Right, and one of the big questions I have for LSU, Shane, was just, you know, year two, you're not going to sneak up on anybody anymore, and you accomplished so much last year winning the West in year one. Will they be satisfied with that? And instead of being satisfied, Shane, they look like a team that is driven by getting destroyed by Georgia in that SEC championship and committed to not having that happen again. At least, you know, that was kind of my read on it.
Yeah, I agree. Kids, I mean, they were flying around, very aggressive, flying to the ball. Even the defense, you know, I hear I'm just bragging about the offenses. You know, the defense was like little gnats out there everywhere that ball was. It wasn't long before there was 3 or 4 of them on you. So I like that. Just looked like the kids were having fun down there too. Right. Beautiful day. I hope you got to, if you're an LSU fan, you're down there, I hope you got to make it out there. It looked like they had a great showing. So, but all in all, man, it was just that was my main concern. Was it can't just be the Daniel show. We need a full thing here, and it felt like a total team effort watching these guys. And you mentioned Nussmeier. It's impressive. Like, I mean, if I'm Saban, I'm sending a little pigeon up there saying, "Hey, come on down here to, come on down, up to Tuscaloosa. You know, you want to play. You know, because he looked really good out there, and to have him as a backup, talk about an awesome thing there, awesome get. Because Kelly talks a little bit here in a little bit about depth, and quarterback depth especially is so important in the SEC.
You're right. So let's kick it over to him, Shane. Brian Kelly on Jane Daniels taking this year 2 leap. They expect him to be the best quarterback in the country. How about that? Does LSU have the physicality and toughness to win in this league, or at least win the entire league? Something they fell just short last year. And players in that year 2 taking that big step forward. Here's Brian Kelly.
Right here in the front. Jaden's frame's gotten bigger now. He's up to 205. These numbers are pretty fantastic today, 10 of 11. There's a lot of time from April to September, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of hype surrounding going into next season. Is that warranted? Is this going to be a major improvement from year 1 to year 2 with Jaden at quarterback?
We think he is committed to being the best quarterback in the country. We've seen that in his work ethic. I think he was on the verge of moving in that direction throughout last season. His play kind of dictated that until he got injured. And I think he's picked up where he left off last year, physically getting bigger and stronger, leading our offense, leading our entire team. He's been a leader. So I don't think there's any reason why not to think he would be, the next version of that. And that means not only one of many good quarterbacks in the SEC, but one of the best quarterbacks in the country.
Coach, physically you got to be really good to win this league. Do you think, is it too premature to say after a year that you're there, or do you think you're close?
Well, I think we're getting closer to that. I think, clearly the area of concern for us is in depth. We're not at 85 scholarship players yet. We're below that line. So, 2 or 3 key injuries puts us in a very difficult position. We should be able in the SEC West to sustain some key injuries to key players. I don't believe we're at that point yet. If we, knock on wood, stay injury-free and continue to develop, we're going to be fine. But that's not where you want to be in this league. You have to, I think, go into a season and expect to lose some key players and still win this league. So I think that's probably our Achilles heel, if you will, is that we're still not at 85 scholarship players, and it's still going to require us to keep this team injury-free.
You talked about a second coat of paint a number of times, but how much of this is about refinement for the guys that you have had now for a year, and kind of taking that next step?
Yeah, I guess that would, the analogy would fit them, right? So that second coat of paint is for, both groups, right? That refinement, right? For those guys that really understand our process, so they can begin to refine their mental preparation, their technical and tactical. And so you're seeing guys like a Kyron Lacey that have elevated their game. You're seeing, some of our players that, like a Noah Kane, who has really worked hard on his physical development. And then some guys that haven't been in this process that are starting to figure it out, right? And so it applies to both those that have been here and those that are first in this program in January. And so I could name guys that second coat of paint is applying to refinement and understanding what it takes to be successful.
All right, Chad. Hey, one other team I wanted to hit on before getting to my post-spring power rankings that you're going to rip me apart here. I want to give a shout-out. Sam Pittman and company, big goal after staff turnover this year, Shane, was to get us some elite recruiters.
Yeah.
Right now, Arkansas, the number 11 recruiting class in the country. thanks to a big-time weekend here, Shane. 3 4-stars landed. The number 2 overall prospect from Arkansas, Charleston Collins, a defensive lineman. A 4-star corner from Texas, Jaden Allen. A 4-star receiver, Courtney Crutchfield, the number 5 prospect from Arkansas. And a 3-star defensive back, Tavis Metcalf, the 39 overall prospect from Alabama. And this is proof, Shane, that these coaching changes are already paying off for Sam Pittman and company. We needed more talent, and man, they are just recruiting incredibly well right now in Fayetteville. And any kind of bad mojo that may have been there late last season, it feels like it's completely gone. And again, this has got to be a terrific sign for them Razorbacks. You know what?
Yeah, huge momentum too coming into summer. You got the camps going to be firing up here shortly and things like that. So, no, this is great news, Mike. And again, you're building something up there. That's the key with Sam Pittman. We did not expect this to be an overnight sensation, even though it kind of was. We expected, by this time to get the recruit, because that's when I think of Sam Pittman when I was younger. I mean, you will talk about elite recruiter. Man, there's not a better one in the SEC, and just the fact that he's got some more in his staff, and you could see the hard work starting to pay off, and they keep doing that, man. The problem with Arkansas has always been that competitive depth. You do that by keep bringing in great classes more and more, and it starts showing out there in the fall. So, great news for Arkansas fans here.
And the good news ain't over either, Shane, because also on Sunday, remember we did after spring, at least for Arkansas, biggest question mark I had was the tight end position. They added North Texas transfer, the wild name, all name team here, Shane, Varkeves Gums. How about that? But
all right.
Why that? It's not. He's not a big addition because his name, Shane. He's a big addition because he set the North Texas single season record for receptions and yards by a tight end. He led the conference in receiving yards last year, 34 catches, 458 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns, and he's got 3 seasons of eligibility. That's a big get for Arkansas.
Absolutely. That's a get. Yeah. I mean, last time we saw North Texas and Arkansas, it didn't work out so well. So, we got one on you now. We'll just take your best players. So, I love this, brother.
All right, Shane. So, I teased you here by post-spring SEC power rankings. And again, I have to say this every time because it confuses people. 2 critical things to think about here, Shane. This is 2023.
Yep.
I don't care what happened last year. I don't care if your team beat that team. So no, that's not how this works. How this works, Shane, if Team A meet Team B tomorrow on a neutral field, who am I taking to win that game? And if you're on that, then you're higher on this list. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me, Mike. This is the most scrutinized list on the Twitters, and again, this is SEC Mike's, not Shane's. So, yes, let's go through the post-spring power rankings.
And it's a great list, Shane, when right off the bat, I mean, I got people complaining about number 14, Vanderbilt Commodores. Love what we saw late in the season from them. Yes, they did get a couple SEC wins, but just looking at them now, recruiting a little bit lower than the most. The transfer portal only added 1 guy via the transfer portal. So I'm still high on the future of Vanderbilt, but they lost some key additions or key contributors, I should say, to the transfer portal. So right now I still have to have Vanderbilt 14 in my mind. Fair or not?
Fair. I mean, you can make this argument, and I don't think 90% of the fans are going to be surprised here. The portal was not good for Vanderbilt, and obviously if we could have turned that off, I think we may have made an argument to move them up the list, but 14's a good spot for them right now.
All right, then this one, these fans are madder in hell already, Shane. Auburn, number 13, and a big part of that is obviously, I don't know what they got at quarterback, and I don't know what they have at receiver, and they may have added pieces on offense and defensive line, which was critical. They had to do that. But, I mean, you could have the best offensive and defensive line in the SEC. If you don't got a quarterback, if you don't got receivers, you're not going very far. So, to me, right now, Auburn 13, first year under Hugh Freeze. Fair or not?
I think this is fair because it's just question marks, man. We got a lot of question marks down there. We know they're going to be thin. We know, whenever you have a coach change like this, it's always rough the first season typically. We've still got another portal window to go through. So, I mean, there may be an opportunity that we get some big names and maybe move up this ranks. But this is more question marks, and until we see it, it's tough to gauge where they truly are in the SEC. But I could see 13, man.
Yeah, and it's certainly not a reflection of Hugh Freeze and his staff, but every time they talk recruiting, they talk transfer portal, and they're not saying these things because they're wildly thrilled with, again, this is Brian Harson's fault, not Hugh Freeze, but just the overall roster they have to work with is clearly not up to elite SEC standards.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, how about number 12, Shane, the Florida Gators? Again,
You hate the Florida Gators.
I could have put them 14 if I hated them that bad, but I mean, just the way last season ended, we've kind of had some drama. Our leading receiver, Henderson, just jumped into the portal after spring. That was a curious decision, but I just don't have a ton of confidence right now in Billy Nate. The defense looks better. The offense looks significantly worse in my mind without Anthony Richardson. I'm happy to be proved wrong on that one, but fair or not, Florida, number 12.
I could see the argument here. It's not that I would see him shooting straight up the list, but I think there's a couple teams ahead of them that you could make that argument. They should be ahead of them. They got one of the best running back rooms in the country. I think they are much improved on the defense sides, which sometimes doesn't get enough respect. But, when you have a lackluster spring game and, like you said, we got guys hitting the portal straight after, it's easy to just kind of pile on and say, well, the Gators are out this year. I'm not one of those guys, but I can see why you got them here on your power rankings.
All right, how about number 11, Shane? This is a team that we got high hopes for. And again, I think they could climb much higher. But right as of today, I got Missouri, number 11, bringing back a ton on defense. Should be one of the better defenses in the SEC. But that's another one, Shane, where we're trying to figure out what do we got at quarterback? What do we got on the offensive line? Do we have enough at running back? I mean, there are a lot of pieces to like about Missouri, which is why we think they'll have a good season here. But to me right now, Missouri, you still got to prove it on the field. The schedule sets up nice for you to get off to a hot start, but you got to actually go out there and do it. Missouri, I got number 11 right now.
Calm down, Mizzou fans. Don't be road raging out there. I've got all summer to work on him and bring you back up this list where you belong. So this is the first one I'm disagreeing with you, and the reason is and I'm going to say it all, like I said, all summer long. I just love this defense. I think this is the year. I think this is the year Mizzou kind of steps out of that mold and becomes a relevant team in the East and wins some serious games. I truly think. Now it's early. I mean, it's April, and I'm pumped up and excited because I just saw some spring football. But I think you're sleeping a little bit on Mizzou right now.
Okay. Now, these next three, Shane, I mean, you could kind of convince me of any order, very similar teams, but I went number 10, Mississippi State, and the only reason I put them lower than all the rest, just, obviously new head coach, both new coordinators, a lot of turnover, but still a lot of pieces to like. I don't understand why people think they're bringing a ton back, considering, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, they're 12th in returning production on the defensive side of the ball. But we got enough confidence in Zach Arnett. I'm not sitting here saying that the defense is going to be atrocious by any means, but you kind of combine all those factors, and I put Mississippi State number 10.
Yeah, and this is one of those teams that worries you a little bit just because of new coach. It wasn't like the last coach was fired or anything. We all know the situation there, but this is going to be a new look. And but I like what they're doing, letting Will Rogers cook a little bit. that sounds good with me. Let's see some offense down there. I know it sounds crazy coming from the Pirate situation, but I hope that this offense is very, very aggressive. And because I do think this defense will be matched by their head coach. I think, Arnett's one of the best defensive minds in the country, and that's why I don't see too much of a drop-off on that side of the ball. But like you, Mike, I've got a lot of question marks, and it's more of a let's see it before we say it. So that's why I'm a little leery on Mississippi State this year.
All right, how about Arkansas, number 9, Shane? We love KJ, love Rocket. There's elite pieces here, but a lot of the same things. 2 new coordinators in Fayetteville, a lot of turnover, second most players in the portal, I believe. We're talking just SEC teams, of course. Now, they've added via the portal, too. They've really nailed it with some of these additions. Arkansas, I could see them taking a big leap up this list. But right now, number 9 in the SEC, that feels right to me about with the Razorbacks. What do you think?
Yeah, tough team to gauge here. Because, again, even though you said you're not going off last year's records and all that stuff, you kind of think about it. I love the quarterback. Obviously, I love the running back. I love the defense. I mean, Sam Pittman comes out here, man. How can you not love this defense just by listening to Coach Pitt talk? So I think they're going to be improved on that side of the ball, and that was their Achilles heel, man. Besides keeping KJ healthy, I think if they can master both of those, this is a team that can quickly move up your power rankings. But going into this week, yeah, I'm gonna go with you here. Tough team to gauge, but also a team that I can see moving up this list pretty quick.
Yep. And number 8, I got Ole Miss. So you can kind of see, like I'm saying, Ole Miss, Arkansas, Mississippi State. You could kind of put those in any order. I probably could see your logic.
I'd throw Mizzou in there. You hear me, Mizzou? I'm making an argument for you here.
But year 2, Jackson Dart in the same system seems like he has taken a big leap. So I'm kind of assuming that. I think we've got a massive upgrade on the defensive side of the ball with Pete Golding in there as our defensive coordinator. And I just, for all his shenanigans online, Shade, I love Lane Kiffin. I seem to underrate Ole Miss every season. They prove me wrong. He had him in the top 10. Maybe they weren't a top 10 team, but he had them there last season before it all collapsed. If they can avoid a similar collapse, this should be a really good Ole Miss team.
Yeah, because I've told you before, I think this is a better Ole Miss team than last year, and the Dart situation was just confirmed during the spring matchup. So that's awesome, man, because that's what I felt held them back a little bit at times last year, and I feel like there has been some development. And you think of Lane Kiffin and quarterbacks, that's what you think of, a quarterback getting better every single year. So, yeah, I like this. I like this spot for Ole Miss.
All right, now we're in the top half of the power rankings, Shane. Number 7, South Carolina. And, hey, program on the rise. They've seen many of Gamecocks mad that they're even this low, and that should tell you about how far this program has come.
Didn't they beat Kentucky last year? Didn't they, Mike? Come on.
I've heard that about 50 times since I posted this, but one reason that I'm kind of scared, Shane, and heck, we just lost our left tackle, seemingly for the year. And, one guy does not make a football team. I understand that, but that was already a concern to me. Offense and defensive line. The fans they're getting in an uproar, Shane. There's rumors Jordan Birch may leave Oregon to come back. I mean, and hell, I'd take him back too. But that's just a rumor. I don't think it's happening by any means. I don't even know if that's possible for you to transfer. I just don't think it works that way. But that should give you an indication of how big of a concern the defense is, that we're sitting here getting up in arms about a potential return for a player like that. Run defense, it's still a major question. Linebacker depth, in my opinion, major concern. Got some great pieces. Quarterback, maybe the best receiver, maybe one of the best secondaries in the East. So a lot to like. Elite special teams. That's why they're in the top half, but not in the top 5 for me.
Yeah, I think the reason I don't know, I can make an argument moving up this list is because when you think of the recipe for winning in the SEC, I think of a quarterback, a good, strong, a quarterback that has the ability to just win the game by himself. I like that. I like you said, they got the receivers. You got a secondary. The only thing we're missing is some of them big uglies up front. So that's why I'm a little hesitant myself to move them up the list. But this is, again, a team that nobody wants to play, So South Carolina, we may be 3 weeks in. They have one of the toughest opening schedules. So if they are able to get through that, I mean, we may be looking at week 4 saying South Carolina is a top 4 team in the SEC. So they're gonna have an opportunity to move up this list quicker than most of the others.
All right, how about this was controversial, Shane? Kentucky, number 6, was down on them Wildcats last year. I think I'm higher than most. I love the defense. It's kind of a no-name, kind of like the old Pittsburgh Steelers defense, Shane. May not be household names just yet, but a lot of quality players at all 3 levels of this defense. We just picked up an offensive line transfer. I like to see that. Ray Davis was a big pickup at running back. But to me, Shane, the more I hear about Devin Leary, our incoming quarterback, gives me hope that he can be a special player in this Liam Cohen offense. And just think, Shane, I mean, he had an opportunity to go to Auburn. I believe he had an opportunity to go to Florida. And 5-10 years ago, Kentucky's not landing a quarterback over Florida and Auburn. But he believes in Liam Cohen. He believes in Mark Stoops to get that out of him. And if nothing else, man, I'd be wearing that feather in my cap if I'm a Kentucky fan. You know what?
Yeah, man, no. And you have the opportunity to put yet a third quarterback in the NFL in a row. So I think that's important. Now, obviously, our boy didn't get drafted for his quarterback skills, but he still played in the NFL. That's what they're pitching there is, hey, this is just it's always funny because Kentucky was always like a step. It was like a step to get to wherever you want to go. A coaching hire, you go to Kentucky, you move on. Mm-hmm. You want to play at another school, you could go to Kentucky and then who knows, transfer out and get to another school. It's no longer that case. You're the only move up from Kentucky is to the NFL, which they're doing all the time. So I like this with Kentucky. The problem is we've got a lot of new pieces, and we're. I don't know, maybe we're drinking a little bit of that blue Kool-Aid and we're, like getting fired up and think that this team's just going to be, exponentially better than they were last year. And I'm with it. I'm with you, man. I like this. I like everything that they're doing. You talked about the defense. You referenced the Steelers. We'll call them the blue curtain, So maybe they could do it. The offensive line improve. Quarterback, I think – you can't say improved, but, when you got a banged-up quarterback, yeah, maybe it is improved. Running game, I think, is going to be – I love Davis. I think he's going to be a huge piece of that Kentucky offense. And there's a lot not to love or a lot to love about Kentucky. So, yeah, I like them on this list here.
Now, maybe the most controversial selection, Shane, already hearing it. Oh, my God, we're doing this again, hyping them up. They got no place in the top 5. But my Texas A&M Aggies, Shade, of putting them number 5. There's a lot to like about A&M. And fair, remember we did those stupid FPI rankings,
What's the argument you're hearing? That they shouldn't be this high or they're too high?
That they should be 12, 11, 14. I mean, they were awful last year. Let's tell it like it is. They were awful. They were one of the worst in the SEC. And remember when we talked about those terrible FPI rankings, I said, they got to earn it. So maybe I'm kind of talking outside both my mouth here, but I'm not saying A&M should be, top 10 in the country in the preseason. I wouldn't vote them there, but that's not what this is. This is if Texas A&M met Kentucky, met South Carolina, met Ole Miss on a neutral field tomorrow, I like the Aggies, Shane. And, we saw Max Johnson look good in the spring. And we might have a quarterback controversy, which I think is good because anytime we have anointed A&M or given them anything, Connor Wigman, all this hype, he looked good at the tail end of the last season. If we just hand him the job, I think that's the worst thing. So I like that he's being pushed. I love the weapons we have. Evan Stewart, I think, He may be an All-American at receiver. Anais Smith is back. Reuben Owens, the freshman running back, looked good. The offensive line, Shane, the offensive line is so stacked right now in College Station. They had an all-SEC freshman who started at center. He had to transfer out because he lost his job. So that gives you an indication of how good they are at the offensive line right now in terms of their starting depth. I think the defensive line will be one of the best in the SEC, maybe the best secondary in the SEC. So a lot to like about them fighting Aggies. I got them number 5. Fight me on it.
Well, I'm looking at all these helmets. There's not one team below you that wants to play Texas A&M. So the reason you don't want to play them is because they are super talented. They've got a lot of great talent on that roster. So it's just putting it together. Can they put it together? Can Jimbo put it together? Can he step out of the way and let this thing go? I think they do that this year, and I think we look back and say, I can't believe Texas A&M was 5th in the power rankings. This is a team that truly should be a top 3 by the end of the year, in my opinion. But again, we were hurt last season. Me especially. I look like a fool down there. SEC media days buying in all that A&M hype, and I'm kind of buying back into it. The more you talk about them, I want to move them further up this list. So, yeah, I like Texas A&M, and I could see them higher. But again, from last season, I'm a little scared.
All right, how about this one, Shane? Number 4. Them Alabama Crimson Tide for years and years. Number 1 or 2 at worst. But I got them all the way down at 4, Shane. Clearly, we know the questions there. Both coordinators gone. New quarterback. We don't know who that is. They're desperate to add people via the transfer portal. Yes, elite roster. Probably a number 2 roster in the country. But guess what, Shane? They were probably number 1 roster last year. Yeah. They lost multiple games. So I ain't buying that either. I'm a little concerned here about Alabama. Again, this is, if Alabama met the 3 teams ahead of them on a neutral field, who am I taking? I'm taking the other ones. Thoughts on that?
What's that hotline number, Mike? Oh, man. Paul Feinbaum's crew finds out about this segment. You're getting your ass beat. So, Mike, I could see that. I mean, we're talking power rankings and if they play right now. Mm-hmm. And honestly, if you watched any of that product put on the field Saturday and some of the teams that weren't mentioned, that's what's standing out to me. Those other teams, we haven't done Tennessee, we haven't done Georgia, we haven't done LSU, but those guys were humming. That offense was moving. Some of their defenses was moving. Mm-hmm. Alabama had moments, they had flashes, but it wasn't all put together, which is part of the reason they got in trouble last year, man. You think about the Tennessee game, they had opportunities to put that one away. They had opportunities to put LSU away, but they didn't. They kept making stupid mistakes, and I saw that in the spring again. So, yes, neutral site, these teams playing, you could easily make the case that they wouldn't. But, again, super talented. A lot of young talent, too. This is a team that we get to week 12, week 13. If they've got all this shit figured out, man, nobody wants to play Alabama. So, but until then, post-spring, absolutely. I'm good with having them here at the 4 spot.
Mm-hmm. All right, number 3, Shane. Did this one for you. Them Tennessee Vols just got so much faith in Josh Heupel to get that offense humming once again. That's all that guy does. And, man, I probably said it so many times the audience is sick of hearing it, but I just think the defense is going to be the best defense, most talented, deepest defense under the Josh Heupel era. I know it's been a brief era here, but still some questions, no doubt, with Tennessee. Offensive line is one, tight end perhaps. Maybe even Joe Milton, but whether it's Joe Milton or Nico, we've got talent. We've got a quarterback that can get us big-time wins in the SEC. Thoughts on Tennessee, number 3?
Did you think at all about putting them in the 1 spot? I mean, did they get other receiving votes or anything for that? No? Okay.
Not in this poll.
Mike, I'm with you here, and this is again a team that I don't know. I mean, I know you're gonna make an argument here with LSU, and it just feels like if we would have saw a better performance in the spring game from Joe Milton, you would have them at that 2 spot. And I'm not poo-pooing anything that Joe Milton did or the Tennessee offense did. It was kind of tough because not all the players were out there, and we just saw a handful of plays from the number one unit. So this is a team that near and dear to me, obviously, because I'm biased. My name's Big Orange Vols on Twitter for a reason, so I'd love to see them move further up this list, but I can see why you put them at the 3 spot here. Mm-hmm. I do think they're better. I mean, short. Now, obviously, they lost some talent, but I love the defense. I think the defense is going to be much improved, which is I don't think you understand how big that is for this program. And then on the offensive side, it's the question marks. It's the offensive line. It's the quarterback play. How does this core of receivers mesh with Joe Milton? So there's those lingering question marks that can easily be put away week 2, week 3 into this thing. But until then, I'm okay with the 3rd spot here.
So number 2, you already teased it, Shane, them LSU Tigers, and I thought you made a heck of a point the other day. This is the team that everybody should be afraid of. Mm-hmm. Not to say that Georgia, I mean, we got to put Georgia there, but Georgia's won back-to-back. And at some point, may not happen this year, hell, it may never happen, Shane, but at some point, human nature, you're at the mountain. Is it hard? It's so hard to stay on top of that mountain, particularly when there's programs like LSU and Tennessee and Alabama chase you, A&M, that have not tasted. Alabama clearly has, but those others have not won the national championship, at least in the last 2 or 3 years. So the players on the roster have not tasted that success. And I think that's a big reason why I got LSU up here. They're driven, they overexceeded, and clearly they're not coasting on their accomplishments. And Brian Kelly, he's obviously the engine that's leading this train. And I love the fact day one, he says, I'm down here to win championships. I'm down here to play Nick Saban. And he beat Nick Saban's ass his first year. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's a hell of a coach.
Yeah, and I kind of like how open and honest Kelly is. We played his comments earlier. He shot you straight. Hey, if we stay healthy, we're running, man. We're going with anybody in the SEC. And short of that, I don't see anything slowing them down. So when you're talking power rankings, we're talking about a healthy team right now, meeting up with another team, Team B, at a neutral site. Yeah, LSU's scary as hell right now because you got a Heisman favorite quarterback, I would imagine. I'm sure there's other names going to pop up, but the way Daniel's playing, the way some of these guys stepped up in the spring, man, it's scary. It's scary how good this offense can be. So, yeah, I'm with you here. Number 2, LSU. And if anybody's giving Georgia a run, it's going to be that team in the West right now. Yeah, so obviously Georgia, number 1, back-to-back national champions, undefeated last year. And I was just laughing, Shane. I don't know how I stumbled on this, but I stumbled on the drive chart for what they, again, this is not last year, but what they did to TCU. Oh my God. I mean, that was like a heavyweight fight, that they have to call, and they say, no more of this, no more. I mean, that's what should have happened in about the second quarter of last year's game. And, I mean, they looked even better in the spring game. It was just incredible. Carson Beck looks like that guy. If he can come in there, he might even be an upgrade at the quarterback position, as crazy as that is to say. The Dogs are on top until further notice, and man, with that schedule they got, I just don't see them losing the game. Reloaded, my friend. Emphasis on loaded. That's Georgia's motto down there, and rightfully so. I think the big one for me was Beck. Seeing him in the spring, he looked like a seasoned vet. He looked like a guy that's been there before. This team did not miss a beat. If they play right now, I swear to God, Mike, if you're doing power rankings with 15 teams and you added Georgia's second team, they're probably, 8 or 9 in that ranking. So this team's loaded, well coached, and until I see something different, unless I see a fallout like Mizzou or something, this team's just going to keep running, man. They're just going to keep going.
We may have to do next time, Shane. How many NFL teams can Georgia beat? And they start all that garbage, but that might have to be a next discussion. You know what?
Absolutely. And I feel bad for Georgia because, guys, we're not going to talk much about you because it's funny. We did this last year. You remember that? Week 2, week 3 in, and everybody's like, why don't you ever talk about Georgia Bulldogs? It's like, well, what do you want us to keep patting you on the back? So you guys are good. We get it. We're going to talk plenty about you, but it is a freaking machine that they're running down there. That's the king of the mountain right now. You ever remember that game? We used to play King of the Hill. You'd stand on top, and everybody try to get up there and knock you down. Well, that's them. They've had it 2 years in a row and going to the 3. They want that third. They want that third ring for sure.
Well, brother, hey, that's all I got on this episode of the show. You got anything before we hop off the line?
No, man. Like I said, it was just good to see some college football. It's good to see you again. The listeners, appreciate everybody pitching in and calling and retweeting and helping us out and get the word out. I mean, if it weren't for y'all, we wouldn't be doing this. I say that all the time, but I truly mean it. A lot of our show has grown word of mouth, somebody talking about us. I heard you get a plug on Paul Feinbaum the other day. Somebody came up and recommended an interview. I mean, it's small things like that. You may not think it means anything, but it truly does to us. And if it weren't for y'all, we wouldn't be here. So appreciate you. I hope y'all have a wonderful Monday. Monday sucks, so at least we hope the show was good.
Yes, sir. So I appreciate each and every one of you, and I appreciate you, Cousin Shane, for showing up. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right. See you guys. Go Vols. Golly, I can't believe you had us third, Mike. You were supposed to be the Tennessee homer.